And welcome once again to the Shadow Gallery. 'Tis I, your host, James Donnelly. And it's Sunday night, but since we talked about that we were going to Sunday nights now as opposed to Mondays, so we're back on kind of a normal schedule, so I guess it means it's only time for one thing, and that thing is new comics, bitches! So yes, I'm back among the living. I'm full and hearty and hale and ready to give you my opinions on all this shit. So let us begin because there's a lot of stuff to get through this week. Some really good stuff, some not really good stuff, and some kind of meh stuff. So let us start with. This is where I normally start. We're going to start with Marvel. And we're going to talk about Amazing Spider-Man number 694. Now, basically, this is the finale of the Alpha arc, in which essentially we have, a case of basically what's the worst, possible side. The worst possible sidekick, really, for someone like Spidey. And, the whole thing about Alpha is that he's not even really a sidekick. And this issue really kind of, it really illuminated me as far as where this series is at right now. Because I'm going to still continue to give it another chance, because this is getting close to my drop pile. Because it just seems like this was incredibly ill-conceived. Because basically in this issue, okay, so we have basically Spidey, he's trying to deal with Alpha. Alpha's still acting the prick as normal. But there is, of course, a world beater called Terminus. Since we've seen that name recently, but in another comics universe. And he is looking to essentially take over the Earth. And so all the Avengers are called in. Spidey's there, and they decide that, well, this thing is just too powerful. None of them, even their heavy hitters, can't get it, so let's call in Alpha. So Alpha gets called in, he rockets across the world, and all of a sudden we're beginning to see that, yes, he can use more than one power at a time. And, of course, he's using it very irresponsibly. Now, all the time that this battle is going on, first we have basically kind of the big reveal that Alpha can be kind of powered down by some of the tech that Terminus is carrying. And we get some kind of witty repartee with the Avengers and everything like that, and it's kind of fun. But then we get to actually the only kind of interesting and cool part of the comic, which is where Spidey basically, he is trying to save J. Jameson and Aunt May in their plane from crashing, because basically what Alpha's done is he's kind of set off kind of an EMP. Of course, he's right around an airport. So, the rest of the Avengers are trying to dealing with everything their own way. And there is this really nice moment where Spidey does gets into the plane, and is trying to save them, and Aunt May actually calls Peter, because I'd actually forgotten that, yes, in the continuity reboot, yes, Aunt May no longer knows that Peter is Spider-Man. Although you'd think that by now he kind of would have gotten around to telling her. It just seems like it. I guess that's why I forgot, because it just feels like she knew. Because she's not the old, frail Aunt May that, would suffer a heart attack and die if she learned that Peter was Spider-Man. But that was a really nice moment where Aunt May, is calling Peter, and of course, he's sitting right there trying to help land this plane. But then, of course, we get, Spider-Man calls in Alpha and basically depowers him. So problem solved, right? At least we hope so. At least until, basically he says, you're going to have to go back to your old life. You're going to have to be kind of the geek. You're going to have to kind of be the loser until you learn how to use your powers responsibly. So, lesson learned, I guess. But then we have, of course, this foreboding kind of coda to the comic in which we have Roderick Kingsley returning to New York, and he grabs his hobgoblin mask. Basically my whole problem with the entire Alpha plotline is that, he was kind of set up to be the sidekick for Spider-Man, but he never ends up being a sidekick. He's doing his own thing in his own little world, and it's supposed to reflect on Peter Parker's origin and somehow in some way, and it never gels. It never comes together to a point where I can say, okay, well, yeah, I mean, yes, I get what they're doing, but none of it really works. All of it seems seems very kind of, it seemed like a very haphazard idea that somebody had at the 11th hour and said, let's go with this, let's run with this. And the worst thing about this issue is not even so much Dan Slott's kind of lackadaisical approach to storytelling here, because everything is very tied up in this nice, neat little ribbon. Aunt May is coming, she's going to stay in New York. She's not going to trek back and forth to Boston all the time. We get a nice moment where Jonah thanks Spider-Man, probably for the first time ever, for saving his father and for saving, Aunt May. But the worst thing is actually, and this is really shocking to me, was Humberto Ramos's art. Seems very kind of slapdash. It was like, okay, I need to get kind of a humanoid figure looking here. It seemed really, again, it seemed really rushed. It seemed like everything was done last minute. And I can appreciate, I mean, this book comes out twice a month, you've got deadlines, so on and so forth, but this issue is just kind of glaring to me in quite a few panels how, especially the big kind of combat-y sequences, the big fight sequences, that the art just seemed really, it just seemed off to me. So this was a 2.5 out of 5 for Spidey 694. I'm only hoping that as it leads up to issue 700, it's going to improve from here, because after that we don't know what's going to happen, because ain't nobody talking yet. So moving along, so we have the Ultimates number 16, which is where Cap takes his oath of office to become the President of the United States. And basically, as this comic has shown us, that there's something kind of off about everything that's going on, especially with this Mr. Merez, basically, Cap says, look, my place isn't in the White House. The whole world, basically the whole U.S. is my White House now. That might seem kind of ham-fisted coming from someone else, but from Cap, you really believe it. It's like one of those moments where it's like, yeah, that seems right. And this is a really, really entertaining issue. It's a lot of fun. There's some great fights. There's some they have a lot of fun with, just kind of, slapping down the hammer on everyone who's trying to still pull apart the U.S., because this is the basically Divided We Fall has kind of ended, and United We Stand is now kind of in full effect here. So we basically get that the congressman that Merez was working with and Director Flum, basically they are all just, they're all outed by Cap, because everybody's trying to rein in, the bad guys. They're trying to rein in Cap, have him sit down and talk diplomacy and strategy and everything like that. Cap's like, no way, I'm a man of action. The people don't need me at a desk; they need me out in the world. And again, because it's Cap, it really works. And just like I said, I mean, it's an incredibly entertaining issue. They have a lot of fun with Cap being president. Not that he's giving like quote unquote these great big executive orders or anything like that, but he's going out there, he's fighting, he's exposing the bad guys. But of course, we have this, these Asgardian runes that keep throwing Thor off, and he's wondering what is it going to be, and he thinks he knows, but he doesn't, because there is one Asgardian left, apparently, and when you find out who it is wow, holy shit. Because it's something that you never saw coming, and that's one of the things that makes this so exciting, is that you could have seen this very easily kind of go down the path that Millar and Hitch set with the Ultimates, but it strays away from that. From the last minute, at the last minute, it just kind of puts the lasso around you and reins you right back in, because you think, oh man, it's gonna be this again. But no, it's something very different. And so, I mean, just this whole issue was a lot of fun. It was really exciting. There's there's some really, really nice art by Luke Ross. Sam Humphries he's taking obviously a very different tack than what we were exposed to under Jonathan Hickman's purview. It's less kind of science-y, big ideas, so on and so forth, and it's more kind of streamlined. It's more kind of ordinary, maybe, than it ever had been under Hickman, but it's still a really fun read. This is not. I never felt like, okay, well, I'm being totally taken out of it because Hickman's gone. So that to me is a big plus, and this was a really fun issue. 4.5 out of 5 for Ultimates number 16. Winter Soldier number 11. Basically what we have here, again, is that we have more of Leo's plan kind of revealing itself here. While Bucky and Clint basically try and play catch-up with Black Widow. Because Black Widow is she knows everything that she needs to know. It's just, of course, being brainwashed, and but still, like, some of her memories are still in there. As far as knowing where things are and how to do them, and so on and so forth. It's really exciting to see Black Widow kind of being kind of evil. Although, because this isn't just like simple mind control. This is brainwashing. So I mean, it's nice to have someone who isn't like the normal kind of comic book trope of being hypnotized or being under someone else's influence. It's literally, I have gone into her brain. I've played around. I've tinkered. I've removed this. I've put in that. And so I mean, it's more science than just having the old chestnut of look into my eyes, you are now under my spell type of thing. So that's interesting. So basically, the head games are really, they're really starting to screw with Bucky's head, and of course this all leads to a confrontation, where Bucky and Hawkeye basically they hit an old weapons cache that AIM is trying to pilfer, and again these kind of breadcrumbs that are left by Natasha, and then we see a little bit into Leo's head. during the issue, as far as, because, this whole thing with the weaponsmith, and how, weaponsmith, he actually kind of asks, he asks Leo, it's like, well, if you can brainwash her, why can't you make, Black Widow, fall in love with you or something like that? And, Leo says, no, I want her to love me of her own volition. So basically, he wants everything that Bucky has, and he's willing to do anything he can to take Bucky away from himself, and that is part of the end game. He's trying to destroy everything that he spent the last however long, couple of years, to try and build up for himself. And that's seems to be, for right now, part of Leo's endgame. The beats seem a little off. It's not quite as absorbing as it has been in the past couple issues. Things seem a little staccato from time to time, as opposed to just kind of a nice even flow, or even it's kind of like there's and I know, every story should be 3 acts, and there it's definitely a 3-act structure at work here, but because of the I think that Brubaker really wants to make this his final run on his final couple of issues on Winter Soldier be really meaningful, and have a lot of basically something that defines Bucky for the remainder of his time as Winter Soldier in this comic. So that in and of itself is just it's an exciting prospect. It's just that this issue just seems to hit a couple of kind of off-tune notes. And so it's a 4 out of 5. It's still a very solid read, and I'll be really sad when Brubaker leaves this, but it's still a solid read, no complaints really. So 4 out of 5. Captain America and Black Widow, number 637. Literally the only reason that I'm reading this book is because of Francesco Francavilla. Because he's putting in some amazing art. But what we're finding out now is that I'm actually, as I've been reading this, I've actually been enjoying the narrative. The first issue I didn't understand at all. I didn't know exactly what the hell was going on. There's a little bit more exploration, a little bit more exposition here, and we are dealing not with like time travel or whatever, but we're actually dealing with the multiverse. So this is the first time in a while that I can really remember that we've kind of been invited into the multiverse. And you can tell that Cullen Bunn has really kind of written this comic to kind of draw in Francavilla, because he gives him just this whole big playground to have fun with. And that's what overall this is. Because there's a lot of, because basically we have, Cap and Black Widow of one of the, universes that's in the multiverse. One is trying to, one's of course helping, one's of course hurting, but they all have the same target, which is that of this Kashmir woman, who has basically collected all of the multiverse versions of herself to run this, kind of, inter-universe kind of slave labor. And that you see some of the slaves they're using as people like Wolverine and, all of these different familiar characters, but they're from the different universes. So, basically, boom goes the dynamite, and Cap and the Black Widows are sent into this other universe. And this universe is apparently one filled with tripods. And I'm not talking about, the stuff you set your camera on. I'm talking about War of the Worlds Martian tripods, which of course, I mean, that's so far up Francovilla's alley that it's like, oh man, this is going to be fun. Because it really is. It's just, he just wrote it basically to play to Francovilla's strengths. And of course, I think that Bunn was aware that Francavilla is going to be the highlight of this run right now, because Francavilla is a brilliant artist. You know, he's one of the best artists out there right now. And his work is just so evocative, it's so moody, it's, you know, it's so beautiful to look at. And so why not write something that will allow the artist to have some fun? You know, if you don't really have the greatest story in the world, and it's an interesting story, I'm not pissing on the story necessarily, but, you know, it's not really that, like, okay, well, I'm really in for this ride, in the sense that, well, this story is so compelling, I'm in for a ride. No, I'm into this book because the art is compelling me. It's pulling me forward because of what's being presented on the page. So, you know, for all of its kind of because, you know, comics can just sometimes be fun. And we're going to talk more about that later. But this was just a fun read, beautiful to look at, just really, you know, really nice stuff. 4 out of 5 for Cap and Black Widow 637. Secret Avengers number 31. So basically, we've got Venom, because it's Rick Remender, Ant-Man, and Black Widow, all basically trying to stop the nullification and the abyss. And of course, nullification equals mind control, because it had to happen, apparently. So what we have here is basically, you know, a lot of the other members of the Secret Avengers are under the mind control. We have Max Fury's life kind of coming to perhaps a screeching halt here. You know, his kind of life, if you can really call it that. And you have all the other kind of Masters of Evil. They're under the thrall of the Crown and everything like that. And the only thing that I really kind of dug about this issue is Scalero's art. I liked his art a lot. I didn't think that I would, because it seems a little bit too sketchy at some points, but I kind of got over that, and I just kind of enjoyed it for what it was. But again, you know, of course, we have the friend against friend, ally against ally type of thing, you know, this spread of the abyss, you know, and the nullification, you know, could affect billions across the globe and can affect the entire world. And, you know, these, you know, couple of heroes, the only ones that can stop it. So, I mean, I get the stakes that they're playing for, but I never feel them. And that's an important thing when you have a big world threat, is that you have to have a moment where it's like, okay, I get how really frightening this is, and I don't feel that in this issue at all. And you know, like I said, I'm just kind of tiring of the whole mind control, pitting, you know, heroes against heroes thing. Let's skip that for a while. Let's just have the good guys fighting the bad guys. You know, because this isn't a deep comic. I mean, it has no right to be, really. You know, by any rights, I mean, if you get a really deep and really meaningful issue of Secret Avengers, then more likely you're reading Warren Ellis's run. But Remender, you know, he's doing what he can, and I'm not a huge fan of Remender. I never have been. I know that a lot of people out there are. You know, people who love Uncanny X-Force, people who love Venom. Never really got into it, and you know, I don't really. I'm not particularly looking forward to his taking over Captain America, but you know, at least it's someone I know that can do solid work. So this was, at best, it was a 3 out of 5 for Secret Avengers 31. Just, you know, not really feeling it, like I said. So let us move now to the Independents. And so we've got Angel and Faith, number 14. Now, Ghost Critic and Agent 42Q, so Matt, Mark, and I have been kind of been on the same feeling about Buffy season 9, is that it just seems to be going nowhere. There seems to be nothing that they're fighting for. There seems to be kind of no reason for the book to even really exist right now, other than the fact that it's Buffy and it kind of has to continue. But Angel and Faith is where the kind of Whedon slack is being taken up by Christos Gage and people like Chris Samney, and although Rebecca Isaacs, who's doing the art in this issue and has done it through most of the issues. But every once in a while Chris Samney will drop by and do a couple of issues, which is always lovely because Chris Samney is awesome. But basically with this issue, they're on Quartoth, and we are dealing with Dark Willow. So in case Ghost Critic was wondering where Willow is, she's here, and she's awesome. Because when she's Dark Willow, anything is possible. Because, of course, it's the influence of Quartoth, it being an evil, hell dimension, and her having the scythe. Basically, it's kind of concentrating her magical energy, but it's also kind of perverting it. So when we see this awesome moment where, Dark Willow, as I call her, and many people call her, going up against this huge monster in Quartoth, and it's tremendous. It's such a cool sequence, and of course, this brings out Dark Willow at her fullest. She's now, everybody's trying to get out of Quartoth, Connor and Angel and Faith, but Willow kind of seals it up. And she's like, nope, I like it here. I could be a better god here than anybody else, so why not have some fun? And, obviously Angel knows exactly what she's feeling because, he knows what it's like to be Angelus. So there's a bit of a fastball special here as Faith helps Angel kind of leap up to get at Willow, and he gets a little bitey with her. But there's a good reason for that, because it does kind of bring her back to herself. And the evil, and basically there's a lot of sacrifice plays being made here. Willow kind of, sacrificing her kind of mind and herself to help, but also more specifically Angel saying, what, if I get too bad here, you have to kill me. But everybody, the day is saved, and there is definitely some Giles feeling that has passed through Willow's power now that she has magic back on her side, and the scythe with Angel as they kind of connect. And so they are headed back to the Hyperion to kind of regroup. But Willow is going to kind of stay on the road for a little while, which is where I'm assuming that the Willow limited series is going to kick off with kind of her adventures, living with magic again, and so on and so forth. And I don't know who's writing that, but I'm looking forward to it, much more so than I was ever looking forward to like a Spike series or anything like that. Because it's, Spike deserves a chance to shine, but there is still there's still trouble brewing back in merry old London with the Slayers. That one of them has been killed by Drusilla, and of course we have that kind of roguish type of Slayer that already has a big hate on for Angel, but other things are fitting into the equation here, and we can kind of see where this book is going from here. And it's going to be really interesting. this book just felt a little short to me. It hit a lot of the right notes. It's a solid issue. It's well done. It's a very solid 4 out of 5. I just feel that it had a little bit more to work with, that they kind of cast out. There's a little too much kind of reconciliation, and it's important because this whole comic is basically about reconciliation. It's about atonement for past sins. And there needs to be those moments, but they seem to be kind of drawn out here, I guess, in this issue, which is kind of the only real problem that I had with it. But again, very solid 4 out of 5 for Angel and Faith, number 14. American Vampire, number 31. Basically, Pearl and Henry, they go on a little bit of a trip down memory lane, basically while Pearl is, her insides are eating her alive, because in the last issue, she totally banged Skinner Sweet. And because she still is, despite the fact that she's in kind of technically her 60s or something like that by now, or 50s maybe at least, she's still a woman. She still has needs, and unfortunately Henry's older, and hospital bed, confined. But of course, this is something that that whole last issue, that their consummation has kind of been something, it's been leading in that direction ever since the beginning, is that these two have kind of always had this unspoken, even when kind of Skinner's at his most evil, when he was at his most evil, because now he's working alongside the VMS, but they've always had this bond that's can't be hard to break, or that can't be easy to break, excuse me. And she kind of wants to tell Henry about it, but of course, saved by the bell that the nurse rings when she comes in. And there's, she says that they're going to talk about it later. She goes off to talk to Skinner about what happened. Skinner is very blasé about it, and methinks he doth protest too much when he talks about how little he cares about her, how little importance that she is to her. And so in order to kind of get to exercise some of her demons about her guilt and so on and so forth, she does end up kind of carrying out some of basically the plan, which is to get Block and destroy him, and destroy whatever, because he's on the run now, because Pearl and Skinner have been doing their jobs pretty well. But what is really magical about this issue is that she goes off on her own, and we discover that the book is starting to come full circle. We are now kind of at the beginning of the book. We are hearkening all the way back to the first issue with this issue. And it's a lovely thing that Snyder does here. Just really this great reveal of this new villain, but it's an old character. And it's really exciting to see how they're, how both of them just keep really just really working this book. Obviously we know that Snyder's a master craftsman. He's a master storyteller. And Raphael Albuquerque is, he's a tremendous artist. He's so perfect for this title that it's hard for me to see him do anything else. Of course, I love when he does other stuff, but this is kind of the comic book that I think that he was born to draw. So again, we have this kind of perfect marriage of writer and artist, which does happen a lot more often than we might like to think. At least with some of the stuff that I read, there's a lot of excellent writer-artist teams, and when they do kind of fall asunder, it does seem to kind of hurt the book. But just a terrific issue, and I love it. So absolute solid 4.5 out of 5. It felt, again, short, but, you know, I can live with it being short as long as it's short and good. The Shadow Annual, #1. An annual? Really? It's been 5 issues. It's like, this is literally, it's like, where did they come off? And it's not Garth Ennis. I don't even remember who did. I can't remember the name of the guy who did it, and I don't feel like picking it up right now. Basically, we have the Shadow dealing with this kind of mystical flower and this kind of fallen priest, and this kind of gang war that's not erupting in New York City, but at least we're back in New York City. So this is taking place, I assume, before the events of Garth Ennis's run on the Shadow, and because we're back in New York, and I'm not even really going to get too much into the story because it's kind of a throwaway. I mean, I appreciate how that they try to make it nice and pulpy. It does have some really, really cool Shadow character beats in it. We get the laugh, we get the guns, we get, that he is an agent of fate. I like all of these ideas that they're laying out there. It's kind of the framework for a little bit more insight as to who the Shadow is and what exactly his function is. It is interesting how they've sexualized the relationship between Lamont and Margot, Lamont/Kent. It's hard to know whatever to call him. Of course, we refer to him as Lamont Krantz. And there's some fun jibes as far as kind of him being Margot's master. That even the Shadow kind of says, your master is here. But it seems to me like they wrote this. I think they wrote this kind of as soon as Dynamite learned that they had the Shadow, they're like, okay, get to work. You're going to be doing, you guys, Garth, you and Aaron Campbell, you're going to be doing your own thing. But we're going to have, this other comic, we're going to put out an annual that has nothing to do with anything that's going on in the comic right now, which is kind of how it should be sometimes when it comes to annuals, but we're going to have it be, it's the character just design is so disparate from what's in the Shadow. I mean, in the current Shadow series, Margot's a blonde. In this issue, she's a brunette, and it's like, huh? Wait, what? So it just, those kind of moments, like it throws the whole thing off of course, because it's like, well, I mean, there should be at least, we don't want to. It seemed a little, I guess, too fan fiction-y for me. That somebody just said, I really want to write a Shadow story. Hey, I really want to write a Shadow story. I have a billion in my head. I literally have a whole new Shadow series that is almost constantly going through my brain. So, Dynamite. Like I said, aside from the action beats, aside from some pretty decent art, it just doesn't have a lot of substance to it. So this is at best about 3.5 out of 5, because like I said, it does have some fun moments, does have some really cool Shadow moments, and I gotta respect that. So 3.5 out of 5. Now on to DC, and the one that not everybody's talking about. We'll get to we'll get to one of those in a second. But the one that is on, I think, a lot of people's minds this week is Talon, #0. Of course, exploding forth from the imaginations of Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV. Because this is co-plotted by Snyder and Tynion, but it's Tynion writing for the first, at least in my experience, his first writing job. And this is a terrific introduction to this character of Calvin Rose, basically a young, an abused young man who ran off, joined the circus, the Haley Circus, of course, and we get that he is essentially he's an escape artist. This is basically kind of the young man that should have, by all rights, have been Dick Grayson, but it wasn't. This was the young boy that was chosen. He is introduced to the ranks of the Court of Owls in flashback, because in the present he is being well, he's basically another Talon has been sent to kill him because the Court of Owls has sentenced him to die. And so we learn more about his past and his youth and his induction into the Talons, into the Court of Owls, and it's really neat to see how confident Tinian is with taking this idea of the Court of Owls, creating a potential hero out of it, and because this is someone who is intended to be propped up as a would-be hero, someone who's atoning for past sins. Not that he commits a whole lot of them. I mean, he does kill another Talon in here. He has gone through all the training, and he is being sent out to kill, but he refuses to, because in the world of the assassins, there's nothing more dangerous than an assassin who won't pull the trigger. There's no surer way to get you killed than not killing. And that's basically what we have. And it's a bit of an old chestnut, but it works here. So we have, we see very much into Calvin's skill set, that he's not really, an assassin. He is an escape artist. He's a sneak. He's someone who can get around without being seen, and he can get out of virtually any trap. And that's kind of what they kind of built him up for. But of course, when it gets to his real first mission, this is when, of course, he ends up washing out, and he stays off the grid for a while, and lo and behold, the Court of Owls has sentenced him to die. But when he doesn't, it's actually not that much of a surprise for the Talon that comes to kill him. And this is basically where we kind of take off from here, is that it's the beginning of Calvin Rose's destiny, if you will, which is to be a Talon, to be the Talon. Someone who uses these, corrupting forces for good. And that's, it's a really, really strong origin story. Guillaume March, who's gone off of Catwoman, I believe, to do this, puts in some really strong artwork here. None of it seems awkward, as, of course, we've seen with his Catwoman work. None of it seem, there's no real, there's no female presence in this book, really, so there's no opportunities for him to be kind of cheesecakey, and there's no crazy eyes, so that's always good. But yeah, it's a really, really, really strong, origin issue. Really good stuff. 4.5 out of 5. Very solid. Aquaman, number 0. Gum is going bad. Anyway, this was kind of a disappointment, because John's invested so much time and really pretty much all of his effort, all of his good efforts anyway, into really making Aquaman vital and making him important and making him cool. And this 0 issue is very kind of, because we have it just the whole thing doesn't flow, because you have this really nice opening with basically the death of, we have Dr. Shin, and he's kind of outed Arthur to the press and everything like that, and his father dies, so he just has nowhere to go. He is a man, he's a young man without a world. So dives right into the ocean, starts swimming around, and there is the most awesome splash page. This most awesome panel with a huge great white shark about to chomp down very seriously on Aquaman. And it's literally, I'm terrified of sharks, okay? I mean, even drawings of sharks freak me out, which is why I've never gone anywhere near the fucking ocean. That particular sequence where first where he kind of discovers how to use, that he has the kind of, aquatic life telepathy thing going on, basically kind of, has the shark head right around. And he has his first dash of heroism here as he saves the small boat and its 2 passengers. And basically it's a young woman and her father. And the father knows who the boy is, and basically knows there is a guy who very much believes in the mythology of Atlantis, and his name is Vulko. So yes, we have finally brought in Vulko, and we finally also hear about Orm, who is Aquaman's brother. And so we have some of these introductions, but that's it. It's like he meets Vulko. He tells some stories about his mother, Atlana, and so they swim together to Atlantis, and that's just like, bro. I mean, it was like the floor just dropped out of this comic. All momentum, as soon as he meets Vulko, it's like, oh yeah, this is going to be so cool, it's Vulko. And it's a lot of, telling stories, and, I mean, it's like, literally, it's like Johns just kind of ran out of steam and said, okay, look, Ivan Reis, he basically said, look, just draw whatever the hell you want and have it kind of follow this path, and I'll write some kind of lame dialogue over it, okay? So just do that, and because I have to go to sleep, because I'm too busy being the chief creative officer and busy and writing piss poor Justice League issues and piss poor Green Lantern issues. So just take over. And that is the one thing it does have going for it, again, because it does have some gorgeous Ivan Reis art. Aside from that, it starts out really well and just deflates by the end. So I would give it, at best, a 3 out of 5. Just kind of disappointing. Justice League Dark, number 0. So we have, basically, this is the first, the first appearance of John Constantine on U.S. soil. He has basically come there to, he's a younger man, because this is 5 years ago. Remember the whole 5 years thing? And how fucking stupid it is? Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, it's like, I will never, this will never make any sense to me. But the reason that he's come is that, he's going to this kind of dive bar, which borrows a little bit of a page, I think, from the Constantine movie, in which they have, here's the card on how to get in. Although I don't know if that's borrowed from, if the film elements borrowed from older issues of Constantine, because I didn't read a lot of Hellblazer. I read some Hellblazer, mostly the Garth Ennis stuff, because I just didn't really care about John Constantine, but I care about Garth Ennis, and I think that Garth Ennis is really cool, because he is one of my favorite authors. So, and he's come to this club to learn more about magic, and to learn more about it from Nick Necro, who is one of, he's studied under all of the greats. He studied under Sargon. He studied under, this and that. And I don't know if Dr. Occult was mentioned there, but, and he's, basically, he's kind of the American version of Constantine. He's kind of a devil-may-care kind of guy, a little bit of a bastard, but he is, kind of North America's most powerful mage. And he has some enemies, but he also has his lady to back him up, and that, these enemies calling themselves this cult of evil magic worshippers called the Cold Flame, and they're trying to kill him. So he and Constantine and, of course, Satana, Nick's lady, team up together to try and take them down. And of course, they get, Nick and John get some matching tattoos. And I'm sure you know where I'm going with that. Yeah. So they get some matching tattoos, and they form kind of a kinship. But then Nick gets too obsessed with discovering the secrets of the Book of Magic, of the books of magic, and that starts to just totally obsess him. It totally takes him over. And then in the meantime, John and Zatanna have been slowly falling in love, and basically this is all leading up to a big confrontation between Nick, the Cold Flame, and John and Zatanna. And basically we get, as that's resolved, because this is all very much a it's a self-contained issue, we have the story of how exactly John Constantine gets his trench coat. I feel like I could be getting duped here, because Jeff Lemire is a really smart writer. He's obviously shown his smarts a lot in this series, and of course in Animal Man, especially. But I mean, he's given this series a lot of new life here, and I get the feeling that he's conning us. I think that he's playing a longer game than we think that he might be. Because this whole revelation of the matching tattoos thing, if you harken back to the last issue of Justice League Dark, one of the, somebody comments about the kind of big bad there and how he has the same tattoo as John Constantine, and I wonder if, and I was wondering if Lemire had just given a little bit too much away. And I'm thinking, I don't know. Because Lemire might just be smarter in this. This might be a little bit of a rope-a-dope here that he's pulling on us to kind of, get the whole red herring thing going. And if that's true, then so be it. I'm all on board that. Even if my theory is not true, and he is, and if he is just kind of revealed who it is, I'm cool with that too, because it's still a really, really good book. So this was. This was a really solid 4 out of 5, and I wish there had been a little bit more digging into John, maybe as a younger dude, or not necessarily younger, but just kind of what, because just knowing the mythology of John Constantine and how he ended up in the asylum, which I can never remember the name of. It has the really evil-sounding name, anyway, but just really, really solid. National Comics. Now, this is, I read a review. I don't know if it was on Comic Resources or if it was on Newsarama, but I feel very much the same way about National Comics. Is that it is kind of like Top Cow's pilot season. Is that it's like, okay, well, we're going to put a whole bunch of one-shots out there, and whichever one people kind of buy the most is going to be the one that we might end up picking up and adding to the New 52. Now, this one is National Comics Rose and Thorn one. This is just going to be kind of a quick hit here. I actually kind of liked this issue. I thought it was pretty damn good. It has some really fun dialogue. It has some really fun art. It has an interesting, it has a really interesting protagonist / antagonist, considering they are both the same person. I'd recommend kind of taking a look at this, because it's the art is it's really expressive. It's really kind of fun. It puts a really kind of neat edge to the comic, but not. It's very kind of cartoony. some very highly stylized, and it works really well. And there's some really nice moments within this book. So I think, I mean, this I would say is a pretty easy 3.5, kind of leading more towards 4 out of 5. I think that those of you out there who have the ability to pick one up, go ahead and pick one up, because I think it's pretty good. Shit. I think my cat just threw up. Anyway, that'll have to wait, because we've got a couple more issues to get through here. We have Flash #0. Now this, again, another terrific example of how a zero issue should be, because basically what we have here is it opens up with Barry and his father. His father's behind bars for the murder of his mother, and has been for quite some time, ever since Barry was a kid. And each year Barry comes to his father and basically says, look, the evidence will set you free. That is what I'm working towards. And basically, his father kind of drops the bomb, saying, no, I killed your mother. And what Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato do in this issue is they really kind of they play with us in regards to how we're seeing all these events lay out, because pretty much right after the opening we have Barry getting hit by the lightning and doused in chemicals and everything like that, and so we know what's happening next. But as he's in his hospital bed kind of recovering from all of this, he his whole kind of life seems to be kind of flashing before his eyes, and he's getting visits from people who are kind of extended family. This this Daryl Fry character, which I'm not familiar with at all, but it's kind of like the foster parent for Barry, and of course he was a cop, and we have Barry with his mother, and there's some really beautiful scenes between the two of them. And eventually we get to the her tragic murder, and him of course kind of growing up wanting to solve this, wanting to believe in his father. He doesn't believe that his father, he doesn't believe what he says about when he says that he actually did it, he killed his mother, because he knows that his father he just basically wants him to kind of give up. And Barry's just not that guy. That's what we see in this issue. And then, of course, we see the big, but it's not done big. And that's kind of the fun part of it, is that, when we first see him use his speed, it's like, all of a sudden he's just out in the desert. He's out of his hospital bed and he's in the desert. He's just been running. We don't know what country he's in. We don't know where he is. We just know he's out. And then we get, him starting to discover that his powers can be useful. They can be helpful. They can save other people. And we get him toying. There's some really fun parts where he's kind of toying with different costumes and how they're all getting torn up. And, we get kind of the idea for where the armor came from. The more armored look to the Flash that they've come up with recently. Again, still not really getting into the science of how it, expands out from the ring and everything like that, but who really cares? That's not the point. The point is that, he has developed an identity for himself, and somehow this overlaps with another character who is also in prison while Barry is there, and it's this character named Daniel West. And Daniel West seems to be kind of a decent guy, but headed, unfortunately, in the wrong direction. And Barry seems to want to kind of help this guy. For what reasons, we don't really know yet. But to have Daniel West, I mean, because, we have Iris West, of course. We know Iris is out there, but does she have any family? Maybe she does. Could this mean? I don't know. but I'm really looking forward to seeing why. There was actually an interview that I read, a snippet of an interview I read the other day that Francis Manapul gave in regards specifically to the elephant in the room of this issue, which is that of Wally West. Will we ever see Wally West? And basically, the word that I understood anyway was that writing about Wally had actually kind of been forbidden, for lack of a better term, to him by the powers that be over at DC. Why that is, I don't know. I know it's something that my buddy Brian Augustyn is not too pleased with, of course, since he kind of helped to create that character, not to create him, but certainly to bring, to solidify his identity as the Flash of, this new era before they decided to bring Barry back. But, whatever. We have a really solid issue, some gorgeous, gorgeous art from Manapul, and it's really well written. It's really well done. Everything about it. This is like, it's just wow. This is a really terrific issue, and of course, introducing more questions about the possible expansion of the Flash universe here. So this is very solid 4.5 out of 5 for me. So now we're going to get to our books of the week, in which there are 4. Because 4 really excellent books came out this week. I mean, that kind of, one kind of blew all the others away, but they all kind of blew these aforementioned comics away. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is, surprisingly, I, Vampire #0. Of course, this is another absolute perfect example of what a Zero issue should be. Is we are introducing the character before anything has happened to him, before he becomes what he will be. And what we have at the core of this story is it is a love story. Is that Andrew Bennett, an aristocrat back in the 1500s, is on his way to deliver a message to his beloved Mary, who is a woman of low station. And he's willing to give up everything, willing to give up his aristocracy to be with this woman, but is still a little unsure about it. And on the road there, the carriage breaks down, and it is beset upon by a vampire. And we don't find out exactly who this vampire is until a little bit later. And we have this wonderful exchange between Bennett and the vampire, who kind of likes to play with his food, if you get my meaning. And then we have the inevitable bite. But something happens during this bite. There is something strange that occurs to the vampire that bites him, and of course, after he's bitten him, he reveals that he is in fact Kane. Kane is the vampire that turned Andrew Bennett, which may explain a lot. In fact, it does explain a lot. Just doesn't may. It does explain a lot. But what's so incredible about this issue is the way that Josh Fialkoff uses the language of the period. Uses a lot of nice old-timey speak. It's not spoken in iambic pentameter or anything like that, so don't freak out. You get what everybody means. You know what they're saying. But it's done in a way that transports you back to this time on Earth, and it's so that you get fully immersed in where exactly they are. Of course, it has, again, mind-blowingly awesome artwork by Andrea Sorrentino. It's just these guys keep killing it. They keep crushing it every issue. I mean, if this had come out not against some of the other books that did come out this week, this would absolutely be #1 pick of the week. It's an absolute 5 out of 5. It's a wonderful issue. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a great read. It's pretty heartbreaking. It's an example of, you know, just a really excellent horror comic. Then I go to Wolverine and the X-Men, #17. Now, I have never read a single comic book that featured Dupe as anything other than a kind of, you know, panel here, panel there, kind of supporting character. Because the only time I've ever read any comic with him in it is this run of Wolverine and the X-Men. But finally, we get around to taking the AVX banner off Wolverine versus Wolverine and the X-Men, and just saying, you know what? Jason Aaron just says, you know what? We're going to have a fuckload of fun right now. And we're going to explain the reason that Dupe is part of the school. And having never read Dupe before, and seeing this issue makes me want to go back and read everything Dupe's ever been in before. Now, it's worth mentioning that this particular issue is illustrated by Mike Allred, who, of course, you know, did Ecstatics, and I think he did some work on whatever X team that Dupe was a member of. But, you know, of course, going back to Madman and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, just this issue is sheer hilarity. There is so... I mean, there's stuff... I mean, literally, I mean, it's like... as I was reading it, I almost peed a little bit in my pants, because it was just... I was laughing so fucking hard at this issue. I mean, there's stuff like, you know, Wolverine trying to convince Dupe to come to work for him, and the things that he has to do. He has to sit through a Warhol experimental film called Sleep, which is 5.5 hours of a man sleeping. And, you know, Dupe forces Wolverine to dress up like Cyclops, and it's like, and basically do an imitation of, you know, this is what Cyclops would be with a blade stuck in his face. So you don't see it, but you know what's happened. And so, I mean, then he forces him to dress up like Cyclops and stab himself in the face. I mean, it's just, oh god. And then there's the Nazi bowling league, and there's the, you know, the sex favors, and that you know, Dupe, you know, both for male and female, and you know, in order to help kind of turn some of the votes toward, you know, in the school's favor from the PTA, whatever, the parents' council that wants the school out of there. And, you know, he helps the swing votes make up their minds, and he's basically kind of being used as a sex slave by Warbird. And, you know, we have Howard the Duck, we have Cajun Cooking, we have, roller derbies, we have him being experimented on by Beast, and, you know, when this fries your brain, you'll let me know, okay? And then he brings the funk, and it's just like, oh my god, this is so awesome. I mean, it's just, this is pure, unadulterated entertainment. It is just hilarious, fun comic booking. It was very evident from the first issue that Jason Aaron could definitely bring the funny when he needed to, but I have never, I shouldn't say never, it's been a really long time since I read an issue of comics that was this much fun and this funny. It's just, it's really a wonder to behold. It's an absolute 5 out of 5. It is a marvelous thing. It's just... You know, Wolverine and the X-Men #17 is just absolutely superb. And if you haven't read it, you absolutely need to. Now coming to the runner-up for this week, and that is The Spider, number 5. If you are not reading this comic, I think you're missing out. This has been, since this started, this is honestly kicking the Shadow's ass as far as content right now, and as far as its creativity, as far as its pulpiness. You really do, it obviously helps a lot if you're into the pulp era, if you're into more of these, kind of, strange and unusual and wonderful supporting characters, and this kind of the one-man vigilante, squad, but it's not just one man because there's a lot of people that work with him. And the mask and all the gadgetry and everything like that. And this is an issue. It is literally this should be. I'm almost thinking that this issue should be taught in just about every beginner's comic book course, because I'm not saying this is an unsophisticated comic. What I'm saying is this is kind of. It's like, it's a very concise kind of mission statement for what comic books can do and what they can be, and when they're just done for sheer entertainment, and that is, it is incredibly high adventure. It is incredibly high danger. It is incredibly high emotional intensity. This ball gets rolling and it never stops. It never really slows down, because we have Richard, who's just been trapped by Onput. This is their and the gas starts leaking in, and he's ready though, because of course under the mask he's got a gas mask on. He's got some kind of gas filter on underneath his mask, and of course he's keeping all of the zombifying gas out. But unfortunately, there are still people that are trying to kill him, that are zombified themselves. And he doesn't necessarily want to use lethal force on them, but of course there are some of Onput's foot soldiers there to stop him. He's not too ashamed of killing them. And he does get Ram's help in all of this. Is that he kind of has everything kind of switched to infrared. It's kind of a Lucius Fox Batman type of situation there, but it works really well. And then you have this. As he gets out, he learns that his ex-wife Nita, who is now his his good buddy, the commissioner of police, his wife, is in a building that's been, gassed. So nothing else is important to him right now. There's nothing but forward momentum, as he says, as he tries to get to where she is and to save her. And Wentworth, comes to kind of comfort the commissioner. Of course, it's because he is who he is. He still loves Nita, and basically the commissioner says, if you can get in touch with your friend the Spider, tell him to end this, to stop, Onput at whatever the cost. Doesn't matter anymore. And of course, we have Detective Hilt and him being a dickwad. But we also get the confrontation where they do, when the gas canister is taken to Professor Brownlee, he discovers that yes, it was in fact Wentworth Industries that did create this gas. And so in comes not Richard this time to confront his father, but the Spider. And with the mask on, he can do a lot worse to his father than he ever could with it off. And that is one of the things that is incredibly emotionally powerful about this issue, is that it is literally him, wresting control from his father, from uncovering the truth, no matter who it is that is in his way. He will do nothing to stop. There's nothing that he won't do to stop the forces of evil. And it leads to this, fantastic climax, in this blimp over Wall Street, where Onput is planning on releasing the gas, and the whole reason is to make money. That was her final goal. It was not to liberate anyone. It was not to strike a blow. It's all just a big scam that was helped by Richard's father. And Richard the Spider, has, again, no qualms about killing Onput. But not before he lets her know that her plot, her final plan, is foiled. And then he makes with the killing. And so we have basically now this entry into this new life for Richard, because his father is out, which means that he has to take over Wentworth Industries. So where to go from here? It is all, it's all open now. And David Liss obviously has done a brilliant job in writing this, but the art in this issue by Colton Worley is so ridiculously beautiful. I mean, it is ungodly, the stuff that he does in this issue. It is so photorealistic that it's almost scary. You almost think, okay, I'm looking at pictures now. There's no way that this is not a real person. I mean, and just the coloring, the mood, everything about this issue is the archetype of everything that really excellent comics can be for, again, it's not for everybody, but it's so absolutely for me and any of you who out there that love kind of the pulpy stuff. If you're liking The Rocketeer, if you're reading The Shadow and you're enjoying that, Zorro, I don't care. If you're liking the pulps, pick up The Spider, because it is awesome. And this issue, absolute 5+ out of 5 for The Spider number 5. And this brings us to our book of the week, perhaps book of the month, and that is The Punisher number 16. This is a very sad goodbye, because of course after this we're going into Punisher Warzone. Greg Rucka and Marco Cicchetto saying goodbye from this title. Whether or not I'm going to continue picking up a Punisher Warzone, I'm sure I'll get the first issue and see if that's interesting, but this has been such an incredibly unusual run for the Punisher, because not only has it stripped him bare and just gave you... It's the first time that we've really seen the Punisher feel. It's the first time that we've seen him care. Because in the past, it's always been kind of, when he spares somebody's life, or if he uses non-lethal force, it's always very begrudgingly. He doesn't like doing that. He doesn't like not being able to kill his targets. But what we have here, of course, is the fallout of the previous issue, where we have, Rachel torturing herself over killing Walter Bolt. Accidentally, of course. And we have Ozzy kind of putting together the pieces here that there's no way that the Punisher is responsible for this. We have the rest of the supporting cast kind of joining in here, with Ozzy and Nora Winters. I love how because Ozzy studying the Punisher is aware of his arsenal, and if he uses a 45, he's going to use a 1911. But Rachel uses an H&K USP 45. And just that kind of knowledge is what separates the men from the boys, as they say. And Ozzy Clemens is absolutely the man. But of course, this all leads to basically Frank and Rachel are ready to go on the run. Let the heat die down for a little while, and then they'll come back. But Rachel, she's not having it. She calls Nora, knowing that the cops will have a tap on it, and they'll be able to trace the call to where she is. And basically, it's a case of blue suicide, and it's something that Frank knew was going to happen. He knew that this was what Rachel was headed towards. That she takes the blame for everything that happened. The Punisher didn't kill anybody. I did. Anything that he's accused of, do not believe it. I did it all. And it comes down to Nora and Ozzy trying to fight their way through the SWAT that has her surrounded to take her out. And Nora and Ozzy are trying to save her. But she doesn't want to be saved. I read this book, I read this issue, I swear to God, about 5 times the day that I got it. And the first time I read it, I was literally choking up. I was kind of fighting back tears. This issue is that beautiful. Because it shows a side, again, like I said, it shows a side of Frank Castle that we don't normally see. But what we've seen here, and this is, again, a lot of people have kind of, some people have really bitched and moaned about the Punisher because it's not, this Punisher run kind of sucks because it's not really the Punisher, because the Punisher that we want is the Punisher, he's the big killing machine, and he just, he's gritty, and he just kills. And it's like, you know what? Just because you have certain preconceptions of a character, and these it has to fit this specific mold, doesn't mean the character can't have moments of humanity, because this is something that Frank never wanted to be, but he has no choice now. And there is this moment, there's this amazing moment where Rachel basically says, I thought I could be you, to just kind of be dead and to be, accurate and perfect and to never make a mistake. And for a moment you think that Frank is going to kill her, because you kind of hear this, there's a sound effect of a click, and you think that it's Frank chambering around or throwing back the hammer on his 1911, and instead he's actually handing her the gun, and saying to her, no one should be like me. And this is kind of the lesson that he's kind of been trying to teach her all along. He obviously knows of her value, he knows of her worth, but it comes to a certain point where you just have to say, you know what? I am who I am because this is the life that I ultimately had to choose. There was nothing left for me. And I've been doing it for too long to say, well, I just have to stop now. No, he can't. The war goes on for Frank Castle. It always will. But Rachel had a way out. And she has avenged the deaths of all that were, of all that were close to her. She has done what she needed to do, but unfortunately she made that one mistake. What's so remarkable, I mean, there's so many things that are remarkable about this issue. Of course, Marco Cicchetto is just drawing his ass off. And Matt Hollingsworth just, bringing these great, muted, moody colors until they require a splash of color here or a splash of color there. It's not just all blacks and whites and grays and blues. There is just this magic that they these three men put together for this final issue of their run together on the Punisher. And it just about broke my heart, because not only was it an end for Rachel, but it's an end for this title. And after 16 issues, it doesn't seem right or fair. I appreciate the fact that he wants to concentrate more on creator-owned stuff, and more power to him. God bless him. If he can go out there and do some more series like Queen and Country or Whiteout, please do them. But don't count Rucka out yet as far as doing, publishing for one of the big two here. Because obviously he's shown time and again the fantastic work that he can do, the vitality that it can bring to a title, and how really important he can make it. This is one of those runs of the Punisher. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Garth Ennis's work on the Punisher. It's very, very, very excellent. And there have been some kind of missteps here, but the issues that shine here shine as brightly, if not more so, than a lot of the great work that Ennis put into this character over the years. And I'm more talking about the Punisher Max stuff, not so much the kind of more comical approach to the Punisher that Ennis and Dillon started doing. So this is, this issue is like, I don't know, it's like 30 out of 5. This is just, it's just an absolutely beautiful and perfect ending to an excellent Punisher series. The first one that I ever could say to myself, you know what, I need to get every issue of this as it comes out, because I can't wait for trades. Not like I did with Ennis's run on Punisher. So that's it. We are done. I told you there was a lot to get through this week. I am looking to... I did read Grant Morrison and Derek Robertson's Happy, #1. I'm not going to talk about it yet, though, because I am trying to convince the wife to read this one with me and to review it with me. And we may be looking at sometime later this week, probably Thursday or Saturday, who knows. But I'm trying to, kind of prod and cajole her into doing this. She's still a little bit uncertain about this whole thing, but I'm trying to get her to do it. So I need you guys to let her know that this is something that she needs to do. But of course, as always, if this is your first time here, welcome. Please subscribe. If you enjoy this, I'm sure that you'll enjoy pretty much any of my other videos, because they're all kind of like this. They're all long. They're all involve a lot of comics, and they all have me. And hey, if you don't like this, you're not going to like any of my videos. You're going to fucking hate them all. Yeah. So, thanks for watching. Comment, complain, criticize, critique, combust, I don't know. Do something with the C word, not the C word that you're thinking of, you dirty-minded creatures. Thumb it up, thumb it down. Let me know what you think, people. That's what I'm here for. Here to find out from you what you think. Now, I'm actually here to tell you what I think, and if you like it or not, that's up to you. If you agree with me or not, again, up to you. But I'm here because I think people enjoy watching this shit. So, from my heart to yours, thank you again for watching. I know that this is probably going to get more views than some of my previous videos, because I know that you're going to be coming back, 'cause we're a little bit over an hour 30 now, so I'm going to wrap it up. This is me, James Donnelly, from the Shadow Gallery, signing off and reminding you, as always, to stay in the shadows.